people will say, your guides, your angels. It's all you. When you die and you cross over and you see that your future self is a troll, it's like Interstellar. Like you're literally down there trolling yourself. I'm about to send you a twin flame. It's gonna burn you up, dog. I mean, it's you.
And welcome to the Acid for Squares podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Dahl.
And I'm your other host, Cody Blue. And we are here with the incredible Jonah Rodgers. Thank you for being on, brother. We appreciate it.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to give you a little intro for those that don't know you. So our brother, Jonah Rodgers, who you may know as Book of Jonah, is a social media star. You may have seen him holding signs that say, "This is a simulation," or "We live in the Matrix," all over the world, all over the internet. And so, we wanted to take the time to sit down with Jonah and find out how he got here on his journey, because we know, brother, from our interactions with you and from what you've told us, that you are a mystic of the modern kind. So, you want to start us off by telling us how you got here?
Grew up in Galveston, Texas, white mom, black dad. And I figured out going through this journey now that wherever you're born in the world, you actually take on the energy and frequency of that area. So my mom ran away from home from Louisiana, goes to Galveston. Galveston is known for gambling, prostitution, and also the biggest hurricane in United States history. It killed over 10,000 people in the Great Storm of 1900. It's also known as the city that emancipated slavery.
Oh, wow.
Right. There was the last city when slavery, Juneteenth, that holiday was based. It ended in Galveston, where I was born.
Wow.
Galveston means triumphant. It sits on the head of the dove ley line. Jonah, or Yonah in Hebrew, means dove. So it was kind of like all patterned. Yeah, basically growing up, had the typical story of the black sheep and, was a smart ass. I think most of us were. We were always getting we were smart, but we were smart asses to our parents. And so, there was some abuse there, and I understand now that we did incarnate to break the childhood trauma. And the one thing that happened to me early on was a tragic event happened where it activated my intuition, going back and looking at it, because I could always read energy from the time I was a child. I knew when somebody walked in the room, this person's good, this person's bad, stay away. My skin would do things. So just moving forward, I was a nerd, played Nintendo. I was all in, I would hyper focus on things and become really, really, really good at things, but not necessarily the top level, but really good. Started reading encyclopedias, always asked why. I was always asked, why is the sky blue to adults? Why is the grass green? Questioning things. And then just moving forward, it was going through the abuse and then really just looking for friends at school. I was an introvert. I didn't play outside or anything. I didn't have any friends. I was just and then one day my mom, we broke away from the relationship she was in, moved to a trailer park. I always talk about the Eminem. I resonated heavy with Eminem when I was a kid. But she said, go play outside. And then I never came back in. And then I found friends. And even though I was in all the gifted and talented programs and honors classes, it didn't satisfy me. I wanted friends. And so in a sense, I kind of dumbed myself down. Like school wasn't for me. I pass everything without doing homework. And so that just kind of activated things, and then got into sports, got a full scholarship for football to TSU.
Oh, shit, man. What position?
Tight end.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I went to tight end, graduated in 1998. And then, so then my mom ended up marrying somebody from Austria who owned casinos. He owned some underground businesses, and he leaves Austria, Vienna. They get married in Vegas, and we ended up going into business together in 2001, and our first partnership was called Lucky Star. So that's that's a sprinkle. Breaking away the partnership a year later, I went on my own, and the first business was called 888, right? Which in gematria is chosen by God. And so end up becoming a millionaire, getting in the gambling business, which Johann was his name, translates to John, which is kind of like Jonah. It's another biblical name. And then getting into the gambling business, turning $600 into $1 million in cash in 6 months.
That's crazy.
It was just this epic run where I was like, always I ended up being the chubby kid. Along the way, got married in Vegas at the Little White Chapel at 22. So I had this run. Now I'm the guy at 27, 11 businesses, making $100,000 a month cash. That's when the addiction came in. That's whenever the unhealed trauma came in, where I started to really understand. You get to this point in life where you might feel like everybody's using you when you're the guy. So that's what was going on. And then, homeless 3 times, battled addiction, cocaine, pain pills, everything.
Vegas is rough. I can't imagine. That's where you were at this time?
No. I've been to Vegas over 40 times, but
I thought you were in Vegas at that time. Okay.
I was in Houston, from Houston, in Galveston. Grew up near NASA, ironically, and then that's when everything would be taken away from me, and I'd wake up one day and say, "I want to be rich again," and 3 months later, I'd be a millionaire. It was like master manifester. I could do anything I wanted if I was doing things in the gray area or things that weren't on my purpose. It's like life was pushing me to be a villain. That being said, you heal your ancestral lines by taking on that energy, because it makes you have the ability now to heal it with your frequency. I understand that now. So getting through all of that, fast forward to everything, I got out of the gray area businesses, became a general manager of a health club. And that's when I broke my arm at Oktoberfest on stage in front of 500 people.
Oof.
And then I had 2 bone infections where my arm was the size of my leg for 6 months. And then they ended up having 12 surgeries. I died in one of the operating room in the surgery.
Wow.
My soul comes out of my body. I could see all the doctors in the room. And I was like, I'm not ready to leave yet.
Were you hovering above your body?
Yes.
Do you remember anything else?
I remember being in the operating room. I could see even my mom was in the waiting room. So it was like my soul was just floating. And I could see my mom sleeping on the couch. I could see the doctors in there, and I was just begging them to come back. My surgery lasted 6 hours longer than it was supposed to, and there was a knot on the back of my head. They're doing surgery on my arm. Why is there a knot here? And it lasted for 3 weeks. But after that, I started to hear voices, obviously the repeating numbers, deja vu. Like, I was tapped into a different frequency where I was like, I don't think I'm Jonah anymore, but I have Jonah's memories.
Whoa. So, okay, this is one of the main questions we wanted to find out from you, which is, you're holding these signs saying we're in a simulation, we're in the matrix. It's what happened that woke you up to the fact that this is a quote unquote simulation. So you died and you saw there is life after death. And we talk about this a lot where, every civilization in the history of humanity uses its greatest technological advancement to explain reality.
Yep.
So right now we use the term simulation because that's, part of our greatest current technological advancement. But really what we mean is that this is a subset reality. This is not the primary reality. And simple probability equation proves that to be so. So, and all the people who have died, all the people who have gone to the other side, they come back with proof of this. So after that, after you die, you say, okay, this is a fucking simulation. And that was it. You were just like, now, you're a different person and, you want to wake people up to the fact that death isn't real. And
well, I started hearing voices.
Yeah, it was first, I felt like I was being guided at every part of my day. And then it was the repeating numbers. And then I could just see that this reality wasn't real. It was like being on the Truman Show where you see the same things and the same patterns every day. And I'm like, it just didn't feel real. It was a process of things where, again, seeing the patterns in my life, I always had biblical names in my life. Earlier in life, we actually had, this is a really random one, but we started a gang that we weren't tough or anything, but it was like 14 years old and we were called the Chosen Ones. Like, and we all had biblical names. Like, you can't make that up. So moving forward, it hit me all one day where I had a massive awakening in January of 2020, where all dimensions and all realities hit at one time. And I could see the patterns, I could hear people's voices, but I could literally hear people's thoughts out in public. And I was like, holy shit, I could see all the evil in the world. I could see all the child trafficking and the dark side of the reality that we live in, that a lot of the people that we have gone through life with that we thought were safe or okay, it just, the mask came off and I was like, holy shit, I've been around danger my whole life. Energetically.
Oh,
so
wow.
for people listening that might not be or have not had some sort of awakening or anything like that, a lot of this stuff can sound really wild and really intense and kind of, almost like crazy, because we've gone through this as well, where You start to recognize the patterns in your daily life. You start to see things that are kind of repeating, and you see that it does feel like a simulation. It feels like there is a game going on, and you start to become a little bit more aware of it, and you start to poke the bear a little bit and like see what's going on. And without experiencing it firsthand, it can sound really intense and really wild. But when you experience it, it's
when all the patterns connect. Don't you feel like you're losing a grip on? You're like
it
losing
is
a grip on reality.
Well, that you are.
Yeah,
and that's
because you're losing the grip on the programming.
That's exactly
it's hard.
right.
We always say, like, because we hold medicine ceremonies, we work with people to bring them to this type of work, and we often say that essentially, like, some people be like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my mind, but you don't lose your mind, you lose their mind. You lose the cultural mind, the cultural program. And it does feel like insanity. You said a couple other things. So you mentioned numerology a lot. And, I think for people.
Speaking about gematria.
Gematria? Yeah. So, and you're also talking about like biblical parallels. So one thing with numerology, I think it can sound like, it can sound woo to people that don't understand that. But I think when you're on the other side of an awakening, let's call it, so, everything seems like happenstance. It just seems random. And then kind of the language in which you start to see the synchronicities of everything is through repeating numbers and patterns. So it's almost like you are essentially initiated into this greater level of pattern recognition. Can you speak to how numbers, and Tanya just mentioned gematria, is a part of the way you read and perceive reality now?
It's really everything. Everything is numbers, even from the binary code on my hat. And I think a lot of us were good at math growing up, but seeing the patterns when they would come through, the 111, 222, 333, most of us started on Google. We would go Google a number. Oh, angel number 111. Your guides are with you. Like, it's just very cookie cutter, but we get excited. You'd see 111 likes here, or you'd see 111 on a receipt.
Yeah.
And then all of us, there was never a plausible explanation for what they really meant. Jonah Rodgers, my name in Hebrew gematria, is 1011. There's a pattern. 111. I was born on the 111th day of the year, April 20th, 1980. Gematria is a Kabbalistic method where letters equal numbers. And this is the easiest and simple way that I can show somebody that this whole entire thing is part of God's plan, your plan, source, higher self, whatever we call it. And so when you start to really decode things, the first person you dated, the first street you lived on, the elementary school I went to is called PT Cobras in Phoenix, Arizona, which is 444 in gematria. The Pleiades 7-sister star cluster is 444 light years away. You start to connect the dots and put together this script that you created. And gematria is letters equals numbers equal energy. 444 in English gematria equals Jesus and equals Lucifer. And it's one and the same in the sense of it's the polarity of the frequency.
Wow. Can you speak a little bit about the Kabbalah? And another thing I'd like to say about, because you're speaking about very specific situations where the numbers lined up and, these different names, one of the things is everyone's experience of reality is on an individual level, and reality is conscious. It is God, for lack of a better term. And consciousness itself is reaching out at us all on an individual level, trying to communicate with us in a language that we can understand. Do you feel that the numbers and the dates and everything you're saying is a language or a communication tactic from spirit for you? Or do you believe that there is an overarching code that the Kabbalistic gematria, that we all can tap into? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I 100% understand. And this is the best thing that I can get through to people. Even with numerologists, 111 means something to me different to me than it would mean to you. All of us are coded differently, even with life path numbers. All of these things, we're all coded differently. And, one of the things that I'll say really quick is that I was given a biblical name, Jonah, or named myself. And I never really talked much about God because I was like, oh, we're in a simulation. God is a frequency. But all these things have brought me back to Bible verses. If you type in your birthday, if you type in 7:30 right? If you type in 127 in Chat GPT and you type in Bible verses, it's gonna literally tell you if there's
I want to do it. Jeff, pull up my Bible verse.
I'm telling you, even like 420, right? I put in okay, Bible verse 420, my birthday, and John 4:20 is those who say they love God but hate their brother or sister don't love God because they have seen their brother or sister, but they've never seen God. And that just clicks to me is that we're supposed to love everybody the same.
Right. We all are God. To hate your brother and sister is to
hate
God.
yourself.
Yeah,
to hate yourself and to hate God.
I think about this all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So the religious texts are coming back into play, the Torah, the Quran. If there's a number that's hitting you upside the head, it's not, people will say, your guides, your angels. It's all you. When you die and you cross over and you see that your future self is a troll, it's like Interstellar. Like you're literally down there trolling yourself. I'm about to send you a twin flame. It's gonna burn you up, dog. I mean, it's you. It's literally you.
You're speaking our language.
I mean,
now you're speaking
you know that.
Well,
this is the whole thing. It's like we believe, as I'm sure you do, is we decide the game before we come down here. So we decide exactly how everything's going to play out. But once we like cross into this dimension, you have amnesia, you forget, right? So you see babies and they like can see spirits and they see weird shit. They're like, they look like they're tweaking out all the time. And so, but that's because they can see more, and slowly as they get more programmed into society, they lose it and they stop seeing things and stop experiencing things. So how I like to look at astrological, like natal charts, like when you are born, I like to see it as almost like a tube, and it's like the planets and everything are in a very specific position, like when you're born. And that's supposed to be your coding for the game, right? And all of it is attached to numbers, all of it. The different planets, the star systems, where they're at in different time periods and whatever it may be. I see it as this like tube that we're in. And as we grow older, everything's like spinning and like creating our game as we go. But we forgot the entire thing because we want to like live it out in real time.
Yeah. There are people through all across cultures, they use different techniques to decipher reality. Some people read tea leaves. Some people read the flame. Some people read the wax on a candle, right? And the truth is that if everything's God, you can read reality or interpret spirit through any mechanism.
Because everything is spirit.
Exactly. So, but one of the things you're hearkening back to, it's interesting, you're using a lot of like modern terms for explaining reality, like simulation and future self, things like that. But you're also hearkening back to the Bible. So my question for you is what do you think these ancient scriptures have to play and teach us in the present moment? And I simultaneously want to ask you, how do we essentially parse out what can be benefited from these scriptures, and how do we kind of step away from some of the aspects of those scriptures that maybe have been manipulated and might be holding us back as a people or keeping us from coming together? That makes sense?
It makes perfect sense. And, my mom brought me the Lord's Prayer when I was like 5 or 6, and, our Father who art in heaven. And I never really knew what it meant. And I would say it every night, even when I would come home drunk from the club at 35. But then when I looked at Jesus or Yeshua's story, he was the Michael Jordan of the Matrix. There's never been a more talked about person in history that we wanted to model ourselves like than the Christ. I also believe that in those old religious texts, that there were the secrets. For example, Christianity is the biggest religion in the world. They took out fasting, right? And they took out reincarnation. And everywhere else in the world, there's older religions. Everybody talks about fasting and reincarnation, just like Buddhism.
Exactly.
Because they know, because once we figure out the secret, then, the Bible was essentially an ascension manual. They took out the book of Enoch. They went back and reworded text and got people worshiping the wrong things.
Exactly.
We talked about this a lot.
Scriptures.
Yeah, the Constantine had the Council of Nicaea take out 300 pages of the Bible, and they were like, we talked about this. It's like a branding meeting. It's like, all right, well, how do we actually want to use this?
And that's kind of what I'm trying to like dig at a little bit, is because it was manipulated a little bit. It's how do you essentially integrate the scripture into your life as far as a tool for divining reality and your path, while simultaneously understanding that it's been manipulated? Does it not even really matter? Because
I believe it does matter. I believe we're all Matrix characters characters. We're all Neo, Morpheus, Trinities, or Oracles. I believe we're all Bible characters. And I resonate with the story of Jonah. I don't know what y'all's middle names are, but I've had many Tanyas in my life and many Codys, and they were always my brother and sister. We were always kicking it so I just, that's how I knew these are the patterns that I recognized. But if you can get to the root core of who you could have been in a past life, or even if those memories were implanted, then it could kind of help you on a path to see that, for example, Peter was Jesus's right-hand man. I was on a boat in Ireland. The boat sat 12 and the captain's name was Peter. I didn't even know that. I didn't own a Bible until earlier this year, but I was called, and I believe that the secrets are in there because I feel like Christ consciousness is the place of brotherly love for us all to come together in, not Christianity. I separate the two because we become the Christ. The goal is to graduate this game and get off the wheel of reincarnation. And if you are willing to, if you feel like you're a multidimensional being living in the simulation, that you've been black, you've been white, you've been Mexican, whatever, then you want to go look through those texts because there's just things that are going to click with you so fast that are going to help your programming, and the universe is going to start blessing you with things.
Talk about Jesus, which Yeshua, right, the real name. But talk about Christos. Being Christed is that of a state of consciousness.
Right.
And it's interesting. It's really interesting watching the modern phenomenon of people, quote unquote, awakening to the higher dimensions of consciousness. And a lot of people, especially with plant medicines, they come out of it and, sometimes they have a hard time integrating it, and they'll be like, I'm Jesus, I'm God. And, when obviously the medicine and spirit, God, whatever, they're trying to let it, you're all God, yes, you are Christ.
And you're on the path of Christed being.
Yeah. Why do you think that's happening, where people are having a difficulty interpreting essentially the message of awakening as opposed to being Christ itself as a person? Do you know what I'm saying?
I 100%. I love this question because at some point, all of us were shown things like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm the one. Yeah. I'm Neo. I am God. I am Jesus.
This is what happens on the path.
You get the God complex. You get the ego, and you ain't got no followers. Ain't nobody listening to you, dog. We seen you at the club 2 weeks ago. Now you ate some mushrooms, and now you're enlightened. But the whole point is that's how we know we're not crazy and we're on the right path, because we are all God and we tapped into God consciousness. Yes. Once you fully awaken, you can tap into Nikola Tesla, all the biggest players in the game. You have the ability to tap into their conscience. Your body, my body. It's just a spaceship. It's a spaceship for the ancestors. So I understood that the hard part is reeling your ego back in. And this is how I really decoded myself. I stopped those visions I had doing 7 and 8 grams of albino penis envy showed me a lot.
Mushrooms.
Oh God, I'm God. I was being held by God. Okay, Jonah. Okay, it's okay. And then I never forget that day. It was a 7 or 8 hour mind and body orgasm. It was 2019, and I did so much healing that day of just forgiveness and forgiving everybody. And then I cried my eyes out for 4 hours on what a jerk I was with the ego death. And you have the ability to put yourself, and you see how you made that person feel, right? You have to reel it back in and understand that it's not the worst thing in the world to live like Christ for the day, to say a nice thing to somebody on the street, to give $1 or a quarter here and there. Living as the Christ, because we are all power sources. We are all energy.
There was something you were talking about tapping into different people's energy patterns. I consider it an energy pattern because everybody has their particular pattern, right? But it actually works in many different ways. Like if you're driving and you're like, I need to tap into my one friend that's an incredible driver. You tap into their energy, which helps you drive better.
Yep.
You can tap into anything. So if you're writing something, you're like, okay, my favorite writer is blank. I'm going to tap into that person's energy. And you can actually use that energy frequency. It's very strange, but we started playing with that recently.
Yep.
And it's so true. It's so accurate. You really can pull in, you can channel people.
You are interfacing and interpreting the divine through synchronicity numbers and people and names and experiences, which, all of this is very, when we have experiences like this, we always say like, it's the timing. It's about the timing. And it's so hard for us to communicate the timing. It's like, I was in this state and then I just saw this. It's so hard to interpret that. But since we have had very similar experiences to you, we know what you're saying to be true. So, and we know you're working with medicine, like warriors, doses, serious ceremonies. So we know like what the medicines are. I mean, it's the red pill, right? So to speak. So I would love to hear when you go to the other side, when you interface with the divine, when God cradles you in your arms and you hear your ancestral wounds, what is the message that if you're told, hey, wake up humanity, tell them we're living in a simulation, what is your message? Like, what is the message that spirit is, speaking to you that it wants you to share with the world?
We, not just me, we, all of us created this reality. We created this world. We created this particular simulation to go through trials and tribulations, to go on a journey. Most of us didn't want to be here. Most of us wanted to tap out at some point, even for a little bit. And it came back around where we just stood the course. We survived things.
Because, right, we all have our free will, but we also have the blueprint that we laid out for ourselves, or sort of like the plot points we're going to hit. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't believe in free will, but
you don't believe free will at all?
No,
okay,
no,
so
no.
I want to.
Let's talk.
I do. I want to say something. Okay, so I have a theory that free will is the reason why we keep reincarnating. So we have a destined, we have a plan, we come down here with the plan, but we have our free will to like fuck around, right? And then it's like, didn't finish, and then you have to come back in another body. You come back in another body, and then you keep doing it until finally you're like, you know what? Maybe there's a higher plan for me. I feel like there's something else going on. So I'm going to sit back and I'm going to surrender and do whatever comes to me, like with my full heart. There's this incredible book that I read that changed my life called The Surrender Experiment. And it's all about this guy wanted to go meditate in the middle of the woods. And he's like, I just want to meditate. That's it. And then all of a sudden people kept coming to his land and meditating with him. And the biggest spiritual leaders kept coming to his land. And then he created this, like the first these massive tech companies and whatever. And he's like, I just wanted to meditate, but he just learned to surrender. And so through the art of surrender is being able to be in alignment with the highest like divine plan where you can actually ascend and remove yourself from the continual loop of reincarnation. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I vibe with that. Yeah, give it to us. I got some thoughts too, but you should go first.
If you created your reality, right? If you walk out your door and you're Truman, you're always going to meet the exact people you're supposed to meet. You chose your birthday. You are a code and an algorithm just like me. You chose 7:30. You chose 12:07. Y'all chose to meet the day you met. You chose everything before you came. You said you're going to go on this mission where, baby, we're going to write some scripts. We're going to direct some things. We're going to do some medicine. We're going to wake some people up. We're going to heal each other and we're going to love the world. I don't believe you can deviate from that script. Ultimately, I always use this example of like, you're always being communicated with, but a lot of times we shut it off because we're like, nah, dog.
That's the free will.
Okay.
That's because you can resist and you can shut it off. You can cancel that dinner appointment, that podcast, hang you're about to do. You can resist, everything you learn from working with the medicine is if you surrender, it's easy. It flows. It's all God. Everything's connected.
Wait, so you don't think that's the case?
No. Oh, so I 100% when my journey started to change, and because there were some rough spots in this journey, is when I did surrender and I started listening. I always use the example of I was at CVS when the pandemic first happened. I had an external fixator in my arm, and I wanted some red wine. And
what's an external fixator?
Yeah.
It's a halo that goes on your arm, the big spikes that they like. My right arm is 4 inches shorter than my left.
Oh, wow. From the break?
Yeah, from the break. So I had to turn screws.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was constantly getting infected. I couldn't bathe for a year. It was a nightmare.
God.
It was.
That's hard.
I had to go through it, but I'm at the store and I want some wine during the pandemic. CVS, the only thing open, and I got a chocolate bar. The register breaks. And then the alarm goes off. Doo, 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 doo. And I know I'm not supposed to be having that wine. I know I'm not supposed to have no sugar. And then so I'm standing there patient, 5 minutes. I go to the next register. It breaks. And I'm like, you mother. And I'm looking at my higher self and I literally said, I know, but I want it anyway.
But I really want chocolate and wine right
and
now.
I got the chocolate and I got the wine and I felt zero guilt. That's a smidge of free will.
Yeah.
But ultimately, your ultimate destination, you're always going to land exactly where you're supposed to. The other circumstances being there. Some people say the only two things you actually choose are the day you're born and the day you die. I don't believe that. I believe it's all mapped out, all part of the divine plan. But we come here with no memory, and it is a constant deja vu because guess what? We've already done this, just like we've had this conversation already.
Your whole thing is like on your hat, you have 00101110.
Yes.
And you also have it on your sign over there.
Yeah,
and we've seen you in like Hollywood Boulevard and stuff like that, like holding up your
Yeah.
sign. So can you explain to people the reasoning behind this and what saying those numbers out loud does for a person?
It's a powerful thing. A guy reaches out in the beginning of my journey. I started on TikTok. I thought it was a dancing app for kids. I got this download to start on
Turns
there.
out it's the revolution.
A lot of us in the beginning were like, holy shit, this is a university, TikTok university.
Yeah.
Guy reaches out named Nick. He sees me making signs. I came out as an alien on 11/11/2021 in my CBD store in Houston. And a guy reaches out and he said, hey man, I'm thinking about writing a book. And what would you call it? And I said, breaking free from the matrix. And he said, oh, that's cool. He goes, I started a community called 00101110, which is binary code, that we started our community for people who were breaking free or wanted to break free. We have a launch day on August 27th of 2022. I go to Times Square and I do a meetup and I have a portable speaker and I'm literally like, we live in the matrix, like doing my thing, And so 22 people showed up. This number 00101110 and binary code equals the number 22. We do the meetup. It gets like 150 million views on the hashtag. Now you can potentially send somebody down the rabbit hole of a digital awakening. And so, just moving a little bit further.
Wait, you just said you came out as an alien?
I came out as an alien, an extraterrestrial.
Bro, we have so much to talk
That was-
about. Go ahead.
that
Get
was-
your story.
That was the first video I saw of Jonah because he and I were doing TikTok at the exact same
that's right.
time.
We have so much
and
to
I
talk
saw
about.
it and I was literally like, Cody.
We have so
Look
much
at
to
this
talk
guy's
about.
video.
Go
It
ahead.
did like 300. I was like, I'm in conservative Christian Houston, Texas. And I said, I'm an alien. And I said, I'm here. This was in 2021. And instead of getting canceled, it goes viral. Everybody, we were like, we've been waiting for you, dog. Where you been? Like, what,
Where did that message come from that you're an alien? Was this from a medicine ceremony? Is this from intuition and synchronicity?
The
What
medicine showed me the reality wasn't real, and I was being communicated with by spirits, guides, and telepathy. And they were telling me, you're not from here. We all get messages in multiple ways, from animals, through technology. The technology, I was very tapped in at one time. I didn't even know what a starseed was or star people. And then so you get shown these things where it keeps flashing to you. I'm not even looking at this. And it's like the universe is pressing you. Most of us found Dolores Cannon.
Dolores Cannon was a hypnotist that hypnotized a bunch of people, and she found through thousands of regressions, she found out that people were having these past lives of being ETs and being brought here in different waves of volunteers in order to help the shift of humanity.
And also,
There you go.
and also through thousands of people that have no contact with each other under hypnosis, because a lot of times
Yes.
they're past life regressions, and she can stay with their soul as they go to the other side and hear sort of their higher self's perspective on the entire thing. She found that essentially there was some sort of intervention taking place from extraterrestrials to come down at this time to shift the consciousness of humanity at whole. She called them 3 waves, and there were 3 waves of what she called as wanderers, which were essentially souls. They were either ETs from other star systems, whatever they were, but they had conspired to essentially, almost as part of the disclosure protocol, to essentially incarnate in certain humans to essentially push disclosure from the inside out. So what you're saying is sort of backed up from her entire work. So you were shown this.
I was shown this. It resonated. I was like, and when you even look at her story, she didn't do plant medicine. She wasn't even on that wave.
Yeah, no.
These people were just coming to her almost like a Whoopi Goldberg, a medium type where the channels were opening up. And so, that being said, even the way I describe aliens, because we're all in a human avatar, it's very divisive. If you try to go to somebody and say, hey, dog, we're aliens, they don't jive with that because they're so programmed to think little green men, invasion.
Yeah.
But in reality, we are all from somewhere else. We are all made of stardust. And I look at star seeds or star people. I didn't even know what star people were. The natives go back 65,000 years, and the star people were part of the Lakota tribes. They came down on ships, and these were like, it's all in the petroglyphs around the world, these little star fire-licking people, because they knew about energy. And so even the way I describe star seeds is, we are basically moderators in the game. We regulate the energy here. We're alchemists. We take on all the shit of every room and we put it back out as love. Now, until we learn how to do that, until we learn not to cry and I have to numb myself and drink, then it gets smoother as we start to remember, because all of our memories are coming back. But it was shown to me. I never even thought about aliens. I never looked up at the stars and said, oh, I wonder where I'm from. But now I understand. When I started sharing my story, my journey, and being visited by beings in my dreams, most of my experiences have been with no plant medicine. Most of even the beings that they can hop in any avatar at any time, they're us.
So you're saying outside of medicine, you are interfacing with ETs. So what are they telling you in terms of what disclosure is? And you know what I'm saying? Why are the protocols the way they are in terms of them making themselves known, coming to people? What is the end goal? What's the intention? What's what's going on?
First of all, finding each other, finding the other players in the game who are awake. Everybody has the potential to evolve and ascend, but it's finding the other players in the game. And then when you get in groups of 3, you can do things like open portals, unlock manifestations. The holy grail of everything and the energy is in our DNA.
Everything is archetypal. Everything is ancient. Everything is cyclical. Everything is this program, this destiny that we're all essentially living out, and it's part of the game, and a part of our game is to become aware of it so we can break free of it karmically. Correct? Am I interpreting this correctly?
You're 100% correct. I'll say it in a couple ways. First of all, Nikola Tesla was another Michael Jordan of the simulation, understanding energy, spoke about angels, had a near-death experience as a kid, but
spoke to aliens allegedly.
They
called him the mad scientist because he said he communicated telepathically with aliens. Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci did too.
Yeah.
Didn't Einstein as well?
They were all versions of us that were that were just tapped into a different
Obviously,
dimension.
We're not the only ones who have tapped into this shit. This ain't new. This is ancient.
They were doing it without mushrooms, though. They were just, Nikola Tesla was fasting and doing his thing, but the magic is really held inside of our DNA. And 3, 6, 9, 12. This is what I figured out by traveling and going on this journey, is that when you put 3 of us together, it's a powerful activation, and it works 3, 6, 9, 12. So when they talk about 12, it's just a crazy thing that I was shown that number 12 is a powerful number, because obviously it also equals 3. It just appears so many times in the language, 12 strands of DNA. Most people only use 2 strains of DNA, and then you get activated. The junk DNA, they call it, is what makes us fully awaken.
So this is
the 12-strand DNA. That's so strange. So before I ever had even heard of the 12-strand DNA, I created my first, so through Divine Arcana, which was my old TikTok, I started doing a YouTube page where I would create meditation, guided meditations for people. And for some reason, the first one I ever made was called the 12-strand DNA activation. And that one has, 30,000 views, something like that.
Yeah.
And people are like, I don't know what the fuck just happened to my body when I listened to this, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know why I made it. I don't remember how I made it. I don't remember why I labeled it that, but.
So this is a fascinating concept, because there's this old parable. Have you ever heard of the blind man and the elephant? It's 8 blind men, right? Is that what it is? Right. So for our listeners that don't know this, essentially the idea is there's 8 blind men, and they come into contact with an elephant, and they're all feeling different parts of the elephant. And one blind man says, describes it as the tail. It's long and pointy and has hair on it.
It's like a broom, yeah.
Yeah. The other describes the foot. It's flat on the bottom. The other describes the tusk. And the parable is, life is like this, life is like that. So ultimately, the 8 blind men fight with each other over what the elephant is, because they're all feeling a different part of the elephant.
And what it looks like.
And they fight, destroy, and kill each other because they all have different concepts of the elephant. And the idea is essentially that unless the 8 blind men work together, they will never get the full picture of the elephant. So it's almost like the design of the game is that we are fractured off intentionally, and we cannot see the full piece of the puzzle until we come together.
Yeah.
And we understand that ceremonially, because when we start to see people people do ceremonies together, the power of one person working with a medicine or doing a ceremony or praying is one thing. The power of two is another thing, especially if it's a dyad and a feminine, masculine energy counterpoints. But once you start to get a larger and larger circle, you can bend reality and have shared experiences. So is this essentially, so it's interesting, you're almost explaining the cosmology of essentially that these fractured archetypes, these dormant DNA, that if you can activate and bring it all together, you can break the matrix.
There's a show OA.
Yeah.
There's a show Sense 8.
Yeah.
Sense 8, there you have 8 people around the world that are having the same experiences and jumping in and out of each other's bodies. Most of us, when we woke up, and I'll just speak to myself, when I had my CBD store, I couldn't even wait on customers in the very beginning because I was feeling everybody's energy and emotion. And I would just be like, I wanted customers to go. We become hermits. And you're all of a sudden you're reading by yourself, and you might find one, you might have one spiritual buddy. And so the game is designed for you to go outside and affect other people's energy, but we're also parts to a puzzle. Imagine you have a group up there and you said, hey dog, we're going to go play the game together. We're going to split up in different parts of the world, and you have to find the other pieces. The world is shrinking vibrationally where you're meeting your tribe and people that are at the frequency or higher. So it was never meant to be played alone. That whole Dolores Cannon had a great saying where she would say, your job is just to be. Yeah, your job is to be, but that's like your earthly job. But we came here, we volunteered for a bigger mission because the earth was in trouble, and we have stacked the deck with light, but now we have to find the other pieces to our puzzle.
We're just 3 homies trying to figure out the secrets of the universe in great mystery, right? Like, we don't really have all the things. We have a lot to work with, but we're figuring it out together. So, okay, I have a question.
Okay, one really quick comment.
Yeah.
That the beauty of what we're doing right now is we're doing the work, just us talking. It's not so much what we're saying. It's a vibration that we're giving off. We're actually, our higher selves are communicating in this room and downloading each other with information. So that's, let me tell you that.
I'm right there with you,
Okay,
brother.
okay.
So, okay, my question is this. So you just explained essentially like coming down here for a mission and to do all this help, right? But moments ago, we were talking about destiny and free will. So there are a lot of people that, do this type of work or have this sort of awakening, and there starts to be a mission component. It's almost like break people out of the matrix, so to speak, right? So, but doesn't that imply some free will, or are you saying that essentially like it always was, it always is, it always, this is just the way we go?
I'm glad you asked that question.
Because there's the bodhisattvic thing in Buddhism. So in the path of bodhisattva is one who rejects enlightenment to help others achieve enlightenment. But there are certain ways of viewing that Buddhist concept as the bodhisattva is keeping themselves from moving on from this wheel because they're staying here to try to help other people get off the wheel. And it's a concept. So yeah, can you explain this a little bit? These contradictory ideas.
Let's talk about it because okay, do you believe in time travel?
I mean, do I believe in? Yes, I believe all points in space and time are connected, and and a lot of healings happen from essentially your present day consciousness going to the past or to the future to essentially connect energy patterns. It just seems to be
time travel.
Yeah, I believe in versions of it. Yeah, sure.
All those pictures in caves around the world where they had spaceships and they had men wearing helmets.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. The ETs we don't have a word for it in our language. But the past, the present, and the future are happening at the same time.
Right.
And they've already happened. So how can there be free will? If everything has already happened and everything has already played out, even in the multidimensional experience, people will ask me, was Jesus crucified? And I say yes. And then they'll ask me again, and then I'll say no. Because every single outcome has already played out. It's a multidimensional experience. If the past, the present, future have already happened, there's no altering that.
Yeah, I was gonna say this before when we were talking about free will. I guess I'll take the opportunity to talk about it because we agree. We also are currently, our opinions are constantly evolving, and one of the reasons we made the show was to continue to learn. Like we're learning from you right now. So we often call this free will school, and I can explain sort of like why we almost like it's a self-contained reality where we can experience the consequences of our actions in suspended animation and choosing to pick a better path forward. I guess we subscribe to these laws of like mentalism. You create your own reality, and that, and your mind and your emotions create your reality. You alter your vibration, all of that. But then we have other times we wonder, especially with the medicine work, like, is there just a higher intelligence that is, that created us, and we're sort of, a creation, like any parent knows that you can't control your child. Mm-hmm. They will rebel. And you have to let them learn on their own, and then choose to, ask for the help. You got to ask your parent, the creator, for help, and sometimes we go, well, is that really what's happening? We almost have to use our free will to sort of like surrender.
Co-creation, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, you're really making me think kind of a lot about, what's up and what's down at this moment. So what do you think about the, being quote unquote trapped in the matrix? Do you believe it's the fear of death that traps us here, and that keeps us from essentially understanding that our existence goes far beyond this reality? Is that what you're trying to heal here and get across to people?
100%. And I'll say this really quick with the plant medicines. It does help you lose the fear of death because you see this reality is not real. And then one of the side effects is you do quit addiction, and it does heal your brain, and you do start to rewire the synapses from things like mushrooms. And that really helped me. But the fear of death does keep you trapped here. When you think everything and everyone's out to harm you, you just emit this frequency of negativity, and it attracts that frequencies. Every single person is a part of your reality that you created and is a part of you. Now, not everybody's going to wake up in this lifetime. And some people are just reincarnating. They're programs in a system.
So I want to speak to, okay, we know that like if you go into a quote unquote enlightened state of consciousness, it is non-corporeal, it's non-physical, and it's beyond language, right? You can't speak it, right? There's a saying, the Tao that is spoken is not the Tao, right? So when we start to try to give language to the divine, to the infinite, to great mystery, whatever we want to call it, when we start to give language to it, we are essentially, just by breaking it into words to describe it, we are separating it into little segments, and we are so almost like we're using a flawed system of communication to communicate this thing. So I'm just so concerned about the same separatist nomenclature or tribalism infecting the conversation to the point where we start to be like, well, they're NPCs and they're muggles, and we start to dehumanize them. Dude, I fear that. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't like it. I don't like the terms anymore.
I wrestle with this with myself. We're trying to make our own language, or make new terms and names for these things that are free from maybe some of the religiosity or cultiness or new age energy, whatever it is. So we can discuss this in a new way that's free of those energetic tethers. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to figure this out. I had to just share this when it comes to the NPC and the main characters of it all.
Well, but I completely agree. And I also don't use the term starseed that much anymore because it can be a little bit divisive. Most people don't remember that they could be from another star system or star cluster.
Aren't we all stardust? Don't we know that though?
We are all stardust, but some people are just existing here as energies. But I have a question for you, okay? The term New World Order or One World Government sounds terrible, but if we're all one, shouldn't we be not governed necessarily, but why are people so scared of it?
This is talked about this. We've brought this up on like two other episodes. One with Daryl and also with Brett and Mark.
I'd love to unpack this. So essentially this is the main thing. So, okay, all conspiracy. So we're in the age of information, right?
Right.
That's all the phenomenon we're seeing around the rise of conspiracy and all of that. I mean, that's just because information has never been so available and freely shared. Mm-hmm. I mean, so that's why there's all this cleansing that's coming out, this healing that's coming out of all the things in the past. We need, if we have a disagreement, the first thing we need to do for healing is acknowledge that the pain that the other person caused, and then we can start to move past it. So that's this reckoning. That's what we sort of view it as. But okay. So we say this all the time. Okay, if the whole point is the illusion of separation is the disease, and we are all coming back to a centralized system that is quote unquote God, right? then why are we afraid of the new world order, so to speak? Because
we're afraid of bad people running it.
That is correct.
That's the problem. It's that it's corrupt because we see corruption in our own systems over and over and over again, and more of it's just being exposed to us because of the age of information. So of course we're going to be terrified of like a one world government, because it's like, wait a second, who's going to be in that government? Because I guarantee it's going to be the most powerful, like elite people who probably still have control and own all the corporations, which own all the media and outlets, which own everything else. So therefore, everything will be, which is BlackRock just owning all the houses, so nobody can afford single family homes anymore. It's just so fucked up.
It's almost like doomed if you do, doomed if you don't, though, if we're at this point, because we're saying essentially like the point is either for us all to come together, dissolve nations, races,
they just need to do ayahuasca. If all the politicians do ayahuasca, you guys can run the country. You can run the world, but you guys all need to do ayahuasca.
We're dealing with.
I agree.
But I couldn't agree more. But we're dealing with essentially, and this is coming full circle here, no coincidence. There is an ancestral trauma around authoritarianism in our people, in humanity. We've been traumatized by the authoritarian figures, by the governments, because of the things they've done. And until that trauma is healed, how can we have trust in a singular institution of Earth? And this is why, I think a lot of us are like, hey, if the fucking interdimensional beings or aliens stepped in, it sure could help us out, because we can't trust each other, but if we can't trust each other, how are we going to trust them? I mean, and this is the central conundrum. I mean, I feel like this is why we need healing more than we need anything else right now, because until we heal the pain of the past, how are we ever going to come together as like one people? Do you know what I'm saying?
All of us are healers, whether we want to be or not. We heal. We have a frequency that we've been healing our whole lives, and we spend so much time reaching our hands down that it's this tug of war where we're existing in the 3D, 4D, 5D, right? But what would happen if we came together, whether it be in ceremony, and we brought people at this frequency that weren't on the healing journey, but knew that we could tap into another dimension with our conscience? We don't spend enough time doing that. I focus on that. It's like, if you build it, they will come. And this has been my challenge. When I still do meetups, people are asking me about the soulmate or the twin flame or what's this mean? And I get that. Like, everybody's at a different level. That's the beauty of the game. But if people haven't gotten to this level by now, we are here for the greatest mass awakening in world history. What that looks like, I don't know, but nobody wants to be governed by anybody. Why did they outlaw psychedelics, Richard Nixon, in the 1970s? People were waking up. They're like, fuck government. I don't want to work for we don't need to do this. Religion, I love everybody. I love the flowers, the trees, the dog shit. I love everything.
They did it to shut down Vietnam War protests and
Woodstock, all of that.
It's a tool of racism as well. Yes.
They just knew that people were waking up to see that the government wasn't needed, that they are actually the problem. The person that creates the problem fixes the problem. So this is my struggle in saying, how do we all come together? How do we come together as one?
This is something we deal with a lot, because we're always trying to figure out, well, what is separating us? And, just to use kind of the conversation we're having, even like we're talking about like quote unquote being healers, right? That creates a distortion in the field of the healer and the healed, right? We're trying to get everybody on an equal harmonic. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like starting to figure out what in our language is separating us. Obviously, like, what would bring us together? It's being post-narrative. I think one of the things that's happening is that because there is a ubiquity of information and there is such contradictory opinions being distorted and filtered and editorialized from so many different outlets, we're starting to realize that like almost the opposite of every truth is equally as true. And, I call it post-narrative. Like, we're eventually going to realize like, oh shit, nothing's real, everything's real, and that's true.
Well, because everything's a spectrum. I mean, it's just like hot and cold, right? Where's the variation? It's just two different polarities of the same thing. It's just where does hot, cold, where does
right, and it's what's true for the individual in the moment, and
in the moment at that point in their journey.
And I'd also add, in a world of illusion, it only begets more illusion. I mean, you know what I mean? The old mechanisms, these top-down authoritarian structures, these antiquated monolithic institutions that have held everything, up for so long and have so many lies and really hold the trauma of the collective within these institutions. I feel like they're crumbling. I mean, I'd say we feel like they're crumbling.
Oh yeah,
and
all the old systems are crumbling.
The
right
Matrix
now.
is broken. Essentially, it's broken.
when you say the Matrix, do you mean the God created simulation, or do you the cultural program that is keeping us from evolving? Do you know what I'm saying? Like the deep state that has hid things from us, like psychedelics, like astral projection research, and so on and so forth.
It's a little bit of everything has broken. The collective conscience and Earth has woken up in fifth dimension consciousness and the place of brotherly love, and it's shaking off its fleas now.
There very well could be we're just playing rules in the simulation. I mean, no one knows for sure, but it's very, that seems to be a possibility.
I feel like a lot of times I'm not in control. I feel in control, but you keep getting pushed to destinations. And in some people's story from our earlier parts of life, we're the villain. We were the devil. And to some people, we're the hero or God, whatever.
To each person, we're different.
That's exactly right. But we're all guiding each other home.
We're all walking each other home.
That's it. That's what makes the game so beautiful. When you see the sophistication and you see things like sacred geometry and the flower of life and how everything is mathematic and everything has a balance point, you just choose which side you want to be on. In the grand scheme of things, you get to this place where you're like, I want peace. I want to change the world. I want to help the world. I just want to be the light. I want to live my life in service to others. And then I want to meet other people on that timeline. We've been healing and we've been exhausted this whole life. And a lot of us have had not so well-to-do friends. They could have been drug dealers or whatever. I never judged anybody for their journey because that's not the experience I had, whatever told me about this person or that person. Mm-hmm. So when you see the beauty of the game, and you get to this level of consciousness, it's only love. Everything is perfect. You're perfect. You're perfect. My brother back here is perfect.
Hey,
I mean, it's a perfect set. It was a perfect day for us to be able to even have this conversation out loud, doing our part. And it's we all giggle and smile. Like I know there in the last 6 months and last year, I know there had to be this calmness in the chaos where you're like, it's getting our season. We need things to change a little bit. Everybody's shitting the bed right now. And we're like, come on, put us in, coach. Put us in.
You hear that, kids? Jonah says, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Oh my God.
Hate the simulation.
Jonah, thank you so much for being here today and coming into the studio.
How can everyone find you?
Yeah.
Book of Jonah Instagram, Jonah Rodgers Facebook. I do a little bit on YouTube. It's in the links in the bio. I did write a book on decoding yourself through gematria. I haven't released it yet. I haven't decided when or if. But
release it, baby.
Release it. I want to see. I want to read it.
And then I am going to be the CEO of a nonprofit called Change the Cycle, and we want to help children and the youth and just get them started on things like planting trees and being a part of nature, having a spiritual, somewhat of a spiritual course. So we're going to get more into that, but these are the things that are coming up.
Love it.
Love
Thank
it,
you, Jonah.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for getting so fucking weird with us.
We talked about some subjects today.
I should say thank you for your courage, because to speak about any of this, especially in a public forum, I mean, like the cojones on you, our brother, the cojones. Okay. All right. So this has been the Ask for Squares podcast. Thank you all.
Please like, subscribe, follow, because that's what you got to do.
That helps us. All right. Be well.
Until
next time. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.